You know, I don't trust the media. I hope you've figured that out by now. And when I saw this story, I ignored it for the most part. There are a lot of stories I see that I'll think are suspect, and I will avoid them until more information comes out. This has helped me avoid being wrong in many circumstances, especially in stories like the Covington kids. I saw the videos and I said, I don't know why that matters. That's ridiculous. And then sure enough, found evidence that it was fake news and the media had been lying. Well, now we have this story. Intelligence report warned of coronavirus crisis as early as November. Sources. Who? Who told you this? What's your proof? Nobody knew about this. Even in January, China was still saying there was no human-human transmission, and they were pretending like they didn't know about it. So how could anyone have informed the United States or Donald Trump or anybody? I don't believe this story. In fact, in this story, they do something wonderful that the media tends to do. They say intelligence report warned, sources say. Yet when they got a direct quote from the actual let me just jump down and read to you. This is kind of funny. So let me see if I can find this. The Pentagon did not comment Tuesday, but on Wednesday evening, following the publication of this report, the Defense Department provided a statement from Colonel R. Shane Day, director of the NCMI. Quote, as a matter of practice, the National Center for Medical Intelligence does not comment publicly on specific intelligence matters. However, in the interest of transparency, during this current public health crisis, we can confirm that media reporting about the existence, release of a National Center for Medical Intelligence coronavirus-related product assessment in November 2019 is not correct. No such NCMI product exists, the statement said. The White House National Security Council and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence declined to comment. The story has gone around quite a bit. And there's a reason why I ignored it, because it didn't seem like it made sense. How could our intelligence know about the coronavirus before even our earliest assessments of that it existed? The reports we have so far, and maybe they're wrong, maybe intelligence just knows a lot more than us, that's possible, are that around December, doctors in China started to notice a severe pneumonia-like illness. Into January, there was only a few cases. How did we draft a report in November? How did we know this was going to happen, write the report, and then submit it? That doesn't seem to make sense unless the story is false. And as we can see, the NCMI says no such product exists. Then who are your sources? How can you run a news story with anonymous sources, but an official source from the organization denying it? You have to back up your claims beyond a reasonable doubt. Simply telling me that a source told you means nothing to me when the officials have denied this. It's why organizations get comments from major organizations when they're writing about them. And guess what? Typically, when you have, say, like a leaked email or a document, they just confirm it. They don't refute it or deny it when it turns out to be true. Why should I trust your unnamed anonymous officials when the actual official says it don't exist? I shouldn't, and neither should anyone else. Now, we have this story from the Daily Mail, and then we'll get to the other one I just flipped through. Medical intelligence chief denies there was a memo warning about coronavirus in November after revelation Donald Trump was told about it in early January. Yes, he was told about it in early January. And the World Health Organization in early January said, or in mid-January, there was no evidence of human-human transmission, says China. And that led to serious problems. So no, I'm not going to hold it against Trump that he was getting bad intel from the World Health Organization. The Daily Mail says, the head of a Defense Intelligence Agency center has denied a report that its medical health team issued a memo to the White House warning of a spreading outbreak in Wuhan, China, based on information it gleaned back to November. The denial followed a report Wednesday that officials around the U.S. government received a warning about the growing contagion, culminating its conclusion in the president's daily brief in early January. As a matter of practice, so that's what we actually saw from ABC News. However, in the interest of transparency, yada yada, no such report exists. The language of the denial appeared confined to November and to a formal work product. President Trump said Wednesday he learned about the scope of the coronavirus outbreak just prior to his issuance of an order shutting down travel to the U.S. from non-U.S. citizens departing China. He said he learned about the gravity. The gravity of it was, he said he, quote, learned about the gravity of it sometime just prior to closing the country to China. And when we closed up the flights coming into China, various other elements, and as you know, we closed up to Europe. So I don't know exactly, but I'd like to see the information, Trump said. A defense official told CNN officials searched for every possible product that might be related to the topic, but came up empty. Interesting. So even CNN is reporting that the report is fake news. I don't know how we're supposed to navigate the current media waters when ABC News is considered credible, fact-based, impeccable journalism, and they're just telling us sources say. Well, I don't have to trust your sources. I have no obligation to do so. But when you come out with this information, I assure you, the partisans will latch onto it and say, good enough for me, the mainstream media said so. And everyone's going to ignore the official who's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Hyten, told the network he didn't see intelligence reports about an outbreak until January. We went back and looked at everything in November, December. The first indication we have were reports out of China in late December that were in the public forum. And the first intel reports I saw were in January. Information, including both that from public sources and other methods about the outbreak, was compiled in the president's January 3rd daily brief. U.S. intelligence officials who focus on medical developments around the world got information on a spreading outbreak in Wuhan, China in November that they used to brief White House and other officials around the government, ABC News reported Wednesday. That makes literally no sense. So you mean to tell me, listen, news organizations are what I refer to as public intelligence organizations. There's private, there's public. There's governmental, private, and public. There are some private intelligence organizations that send this information off to news outlets to let them know what's happening if these journalists can't source the information. But often information on something emerges from journalism. You mean to tell me that in November, when all this is happening, you had no idea, news organizations, not one journalist knew this was going on and reported this to any outlet. None of these private intelligence firms that charge tens of thousands of dollars knew this was happening. Yet, the U.S. government certainly did. They beat everyone to the punch, and they predicted this well before anyone, anywhere, could have seen it coming, even China. Sounds to me like ABC just published fake news to make the president look bad. Don't ask me why. I don't know who these officials are, and they're not telling us. U.S. intelligence officials who focus on medical developments around the world got information on a spreading outbreak. All right, I read that. Intelligence officials memorialized what they learned and presented it to the Defense Intelligence Agency and the Joint Staff of the Pentagon, as well as the White House, according to ABC. Those warnings would have anticipated the coronavirus outbreak that has tanked the global economy. Based on anonymous sourcing, it was not immediately clear from the report, based on anonymous sourcing, who in the White House had access to the information and precisely when. As the information was refined and verified, it was only included in the president's daily brief, a key intelligence document, in early January, days after China informed global health officials of the new coronavirus outbreak. However, sources described repeated briefings through December for policymakers and decision makers across the federal government, as well as the National Security Council of the White House, according to the report. The briefings of an issue the military needed to be aware of went back as far as late November, according to the report. The National Center for Medical Intelligence, part of the nation's sprawling military intelligence service, with offices in Fort Detrick, Maryland, produced the report. Yet, so they say, the NCMI says it doesn't exist, so who am I supposed to believe? It wasn't the only warning of the growing threat as the coronavirus outbreak spread and ultimately became a pandemic. Now I'll play devil's advocate. It's possible we're being lied to by the government. The government lies. It's possible that they knew about this because they have very powerful spies around the world and sources. The U.S. military probably has access to information. And yeah, it's fair to say they will preempt journalism. I'll tell you what, though, man, I kind of err on the side of government is not as nearly as powerful as people think it is. They are bureaucratic. They are spinning in circles half the time, not knowing where they are, and they're sluggish. I would much more prefer to believe, again, it's me making my choice on this one, that the private sector does a better job of sourcing information and catching these things. Because if it were true that the government knew about these things before they were going to happen, they'd have planned for it. They'd have done something. But I guess that's the tale they're trying to weave. The president should have known, the White House should have known, and they did nothing. And now here we are. I'm sorry. I just don't think it's true that the government is this all-powerful, all-seeing eye that can predict everything with tendrils everywhere. I think we can see this stuff. It's fairly obvious. There's no great Illuminati scheme, no overarching power between globalists within the government. They have no idea what's going on, man. It's a bunch of dumb people who think they're smarter than you. That's typically how it tends to be. Some of them actually are smarter than you and me. That's how they become successful in business and become heads of state. That's fair. Many of them are just born into this stuff or get access to it. But for the most part, look, man, we're a chicken with our head cut off running around in circles. I don't think that anybody could have seen this coming. They would have done things so dramatically differently. Unless you want to believe in some grand conspiracy where China let it happen or planned it and the U.S. let it happen. Like, I just don't buy it, man. I'm sorry. There's no grand conspiracy between Donald Trump and the Democrats and the intelligence services to make this happen. They're not targeting their own people. So explain to me how then this occurred. Now, the conspiracy they're trying to weave is that Trump is just incompetent and the White House should have known, but they didn't. Nah, I'm sorry, man. The reality is they are incompetent, but so is China and so is everybody else. We acted 2 weeks too late, causing this major crisis, and now here we are. The media would do well to stop relying on unnamed individuals who none of us can trust because we don't know who they are, and do their best to source information when they have hard evidence of it. How about you produce the documents, publish them, and then we can talk about it. I'll leave it there. I got one more segment coming up for you in a few minutes, and I will see you all shortly.